This episode of the Crackcast is brought to you by our friends at BigDoor24.pl. It's a new free service dedicated to helping expats to rent or buy a property and earn cash back on successful mortgage applications. BigDoor24.pl also has lots of tips and advice on renting and buying in Poland, so make sure you check them out and use the special promo code CRACKCAST to get a great cash back offer. And now, on with the show. So we thought we'd do a show this week, a bit of an update on the changing Polish political scene. There's some big news this week in the world of Polish politics. A new party was born, I guess we could say, called Wiosna, means spring in Polish, if you don't know, led by Robert Biedron. And Dr. Mike, why don't you walk us through who this guy is and what the party is all about, and maybe where it sits on the Polish political spectrum?
Well, I'd just like to say congratulations. It's a political party.
It's a party.
It's always beautiful to be there at the birth. Robert Biedroń.
Nice accent there.
Has been in politics for quite a while now, which I think is funny because he always tries to present himself as being somebody new. He started up with Palikot, another kind of wacko politician more than 10 years ago, with Ruch Palikota. And that's how, he got into politics. Then he became the president of, Słupsk. Sorry, I had a name.
Yeah, it was.
For the last term, and he decided not to run for a second term. And a lot of people were wondering, well, why is that? And it's, everybody was suspecting him of having more political plans and maybe running for a member of parliament to the EU Parliament, maybe running for president of Poland, who knows? And it's turned out that he decided to start his own political party called Wiosna, Spring. It's pretty much all about him, though. And like I was saying, he tries to present himself as somebody new, but a lot of the people associated with this party come from either Ruch Palikota, so they've been in politics for years as well. You also have some people from Nowoczesna, from Platforma, from SLD, that's the post-commie leftist party here. And they're all getting involved. And where they are on the spectrum, well, they're definitely a left of center party, kind of in line with your European social democrat parties, and all their slogans are basically ripped off of all those parties. Just Google translated and stuck on the website.
Yes, we can.
Yes, pretty much. Oh, yes, we can, baby.
Raise the minimum wage. He's got some classic kind of social policy plays here.
Equality, that's one of his slogans.
Yeah,
equality.
LGBT rights.
Without actually saying
abolition of Zeus and Cruz, getting rid of the funds.
But Mike, you mentioned that the party's all about him, and that's interesting. If you go to the website, the official website of the party, it's almost unnerving. It's a little bit scary how much a lot of video there, it's all about him. It's him taking selfies with young people. It's him striking rock star poses on a stage with confetti falling down and whatnot.
You're not Freddie Mercury, man.
Yeah, exactly. It is like Freddie Mercury. It's all about him, and he is the focus of everything. And this got me thinking about how it seems to me that even going back maybe...
Total separation of church and state he's going for. That would be a controversial.
Yeah, good luck with that. Going back 15, 20 years in Polish politics, it's interesting and a little bit strange, actually, how often that political parties are either explicitly about one guy, like the guy's name is in the party, or a party is de facto built around a single personality. And I can go back maybe 15, 20 years again. I think about, Tusk. For the longest time, PO was Tusk, Tusk was PO, right? Andrzej Leper, Samuel Brona, kind of a fringe party, but it was his party. Leszek Balcerowicz was basically a Unia Wolności. This is 15, 20 years ago again. Peace is de facto Kaczyński, and some time ago the brothers Kaczyński, obviously, but now it's he is peace. He's the face of peace.
Hold on a second. Can you name me one political party in the world that isn't intimately linked to whoever its leader is at that given moment?
Well, not at a given moment. The party doesn't exist without them. It was created just for them. In the UK, you might have the Tories and the Labour. In America, you have the Republicans and the Democrats. And individuals will come and go across the scene, but the parties stay. Here, the party only exists as long as the guy is around.
But the parties haven't existed for that long, is the point I'm trying to make.
When the guy moves on, the party is
yes, I know, but they're not as. I get what you're saying. They're not as an immutable part of Polish life because they only exist since 1990. So it's not as big a deal. Like, it's not like the Conservatives being closed down in the UK. But it's just to clarify what I'm saying here. It's still very much called the Cameron era, the Cameron Conservatives. It still is a hugely important role. I mean, leaders are massively important, to any.
That's true, but in the case of Biedron, it seems that you're voting for him.
Yeah, not
it's a referendum on what you think about him as a person and not about the party, the values of the party. We'll get to that in just a second. But it's just odd that, if you support peace, then you must accept Kaczyński. If you support PO, which we'll talk about in a minute, well, who do you support? I'm not sure right now at the moment.
I'd like to ask Mike, is this more of a case that PO is a damaged brand, and that's what's behind a lot of there was another coalition of leftist politicians running in all the local elections. They didn't run under the PO banner as well. Is it just a feeling that PO got such an ass kicking the last time out that the brand's become toxic?
PO is pretty much damaged goods right now. They don't know where they're going, who's in charge of them. And one of the main reasons a lot of people are suspecting Wiosna now is being hyped up so much is because PiS actually wants Wiosna to get votes because they're assuming that they'll take a lot of votes from PO. Because PO originally started as a pro-business right-of-center party, has drifted way, way, way left. They're not the same party they were 10, 15 years ago when they started up. Mm-hmm. So that's another reason why they've lost a lot of support because nobody knows what they're for anymore. They're just the anti-PiS peace party. So when Wiosna had their big conference the other week, it was all over the state-run news. It was like free advertising for them. This is something that a party would have to pay millions to have it broadcast on TV. It was on the national television stations all the time. It was being talked about all the time. Basically, the government, people suspect that the government wants Wiosna to get at least a few percentage points more because they know that they're going to lose. They're going to gain voters mainly from PO and not from PiS. So this is a great tactic to weaken PO.
A couple of theories about where their support's going to come from. One, as you suggested, they're going to peel away a lot of voters from PO. It's hard to imagine core PiS voters moving to Wiosna. I'm sure it's a big country. I'm sure some people will, millions of people. But generally speaking, PiS voters are going to stay where they are. PO voters are the ones that are likely to migrate to Wiosna, along with maybe some of the smaller fringe left parties that don't really meet the 5% threshold.
Like Razem right now is basically disappeared. They got only 3% during the last elections, but when you get over 3%, even though you don't get into parliament, you get funding from the state.
3%, yeah.
And Razem was surviving on that, but it seems they've dropped off the radar now, and basically their voters are going to be sucked in by Wiosna. There was even talk about coalitions, running together during the European parliamentary elections, but the Razem said, we're not really interested because Wiosna is not going to help us get our people on a high list on the position on those voting lists. They're asking for a lot of money from us, which Razem doesn't have. It's a crazy situation.
Well, in parliamentary politics, it's good to be. You have to be tactical when this happens. So Biedron, you have to imagine, is going to hoover up a lot of the left wing of PO's votes. So they need to move to the centre now and be clever and take a very centrist, boring position on everything. And maybe they can split enough of the vote where they get in as part of a minority government, and and PiS lose the other side of that argument. They might create a natural coalition partner. Don't PiS have a problem on the right with not being able to go into government with a couple of the parties there? So PO need to box clever here and make an ally out of Biedron rather than getting their
here's another theory.
In a twist that he's stealing a few votes off them. They just need to do the parliamentary math.
Well,
and make their plan from there.
Wait. Here's another theory on where their vote's going to come from. Yeah, they're going to peel away supporters from various left parties, but another theme that you see suggested quite a bit is that Wiosna is kind of designed to appeal to people who are not really engaged politically at all right now. They don't vote for anybody right now. Wiosna wants to seem like above the bickering, above the fighting, talk about unity, talk about equality, all feel-good stuff. Don't get too bogged down into details about tax policy or foreign policy and things like that, but just a good, happy face.
He's got a good aspirational face, doesn't he?
He does. A lot of people just, again, bring people into politics who have not been engaged so far. So that's an idea, too. So What do you
That's
make of that?
actually an astute piece of analysis, and that's why it ties into what I'm saying. Is this doesn't have to necessarily be bad news for the left, if you like, in Poland. It could create, another large party which could help them. If the only idea is to get peace out of power, this doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing at all. Because as you nailed on the head there, John, if you can get another 2 or 3% voting that wouldn't normally vote, that can have a massive effect on the outcome of an election. And I believe there's an acknowledgement in the centre and on the left of politics in this country is that's what's going to be necessary to unseat peace at the next election. So
I mean, I can definitely see them bringing in new voters, but if it's going to be enough to be substantial, significant to actually, because we're all talking about this as if they're a long-lasting party of traditions. They just popped up the other week.
But they popped up and got 50% of the vote in certain polls, if you believe them.
Yeah, that's the thing. In polls, and that's always the shiny new thing. People got interested in it, and like I said, Biedron is one of those people that even when people don't care about politics, they say, "But he looks nice. He dresses nice. He seems pleasant." Exactly.
The election's in 6 or 7 months. If you can just not say it and really stupid until then, it'll have a good chance of.
They're concentrating right now on the European parliamentary elections, which are happening in May, and that's there's also a little bit of cynical talk that they want to get as many representatives as possible, mainly because then those representatives who are in the EU Parliament have to send back some of their money to a party here, which fill up the coffers and get them ready for the elections in the fall.
Another classic parliamentary tactic.
A couple of reasons to be maybe a little bit skeptical about their chances for the elections in October, the national elections. His positions, especially on social issues, which he's very open about. And by the way, he was
the first openly gay member of the Sejm.
Yes. He's openly gay.
He's been attacked a few times. The only openly gay man in Poland, you could have made it sound like.
No, there's a few. He's the one who gets the most attention, though.
Yeah. But why can't I say that? LGBT rights are at the kind of the center of a social policy. He's open about this.
Free spirit.
Now, and this is not a discussion of right or wrong, good or bad, but the fact, the reality is that I don't see that being a big winner in the general elections.
Well, it's like, bringing in new voters who wouldn't traditionally be involved in Polish politics. That's another thing that might make him stand out as a bit different from the crowd. And to go back to your original point, I actually do think, just from watching this, I was a bit sceptical when he came out as well, but it does seem to be developing its own momentum, and I think actually, he is going to be a bit of a force.
Very thin on details, though. Very thin on.
Yeah, but how many? You could throw that at a lot of new parties when they come on the scene. They're basically trying to say as little as possible until they absolutely have to.
And maybe the idea is to appeal to voters who are maybe not going to do too much research on the details of tax policy.
Well, he was quizzed on how much his program for government would cost recently on Polish TV. He came up with the figure of 35 billion Polish zlotys. There's a lot of kind of standard left plays in there, increased salaries, increased minimum wages, increased pensions, that type of thing. But nothing that PiS haven't done themselves, let's be fair about it.
Still, go to the website.
Alterations to the PNZ.
Go to the website, look at the video. I found it a bit odd, I have to be honest. I found a little bit too much like star quality stuff. I would have appreciated some scenes of him like talking to ordinary people about, I don't know, their regular lives,
weird, right?
Instead of being on a stage and smiling for the cameras.
I'm going to say something a little strange. He's got quite a memorable face. The minute you see him on TV, the next time you see him, you know straight away who it is again, if you know what I mean. True. There's something about the youngish features with the grey hair. Looks good in a suit.
Have you got a man crush on him?
I think a little bit, a little bit. He's a well-turned-out gentleman.
Let's stay on the Polish political scene, but let's change gears here to a different party. We've mentioned PO. Seems kind of directionless for the last, half a decade or more. They don't really know what they're doing. And their leader up until, 2000, help me, Mike, up until 2011?
11, yeah.
Donald Tusk, who's gone on to bigger and better things in Brussels. He's been in the news for a few different reasons recently. And there's always this speculation, there's always this talk that, is he thinking about making some dramatic return? Since the door seems to be wide open at PO, is this crazy talk or is this a thing?
It's Dr. possible because he's finishing his second term right now.
Yeah, he was Prime Minister since 2014. And
2014 was it?
Because it was 2015 when they lost.
And then his Kopacz took over after him. Exactly. So she could be the one who loses, not him. Yeah. but he ends his term in December. But the parliamentary elections here are actually earlier. So if he does want to get into Polish politics, I think he would have to leave his position there a couple of months early. But there's a lot of talk that he's going to be in Poland in June 4th specifically, to start up a new type of local political initiative. Get a lot of local people involved, not necessarily PO people. And June 4th is a big date here because that's when the first partially free elections were held back in 1989. So it's a date people remember, generally speaking. Nobody's really sure, though, if he does come back, what his platform will be.
He's not going to come back. He's not that stupid.
I have my doubts because he's super popular in Europe
he's
right
an
now.
International statesman now.
While in Poland, there are people that really would like him to come back, but he has a really high chance of losing. And if he loses here, he's, his legacy, everything is ruined. Now he could just walk away, do speeches, write books. Maybe he could run for president in a couple in the next term.
That's what he's going to do.
But to get involved in politics right now, when there's such a high chance of him losing, that would just basically kill his career.
I usually leave the predictions to Mike, but I 1,000,000% think he'll run for the Polish presidency at some point. But not a hope on earth he leads them to another parliamentary election because he's not stupid.
Hey Dave, speaking of Tusk, tell us how his comments about the EU played back in Ireland when he talked about a special place in hell, I think it was.
Well, here, let's be fair about that, right? When Jeremy Hunt compared the EU to the USSR as the Foreign Secretary of the UK, following on from the previous Foreign Secretary comparing it to the Nazi superstate, a burn was in the post, especially from Donald. I was actually on those solidarity committees. Don't you dare talk about the USSR to me. Tusk, it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander. I couldn't believe the sensitivity to the reaction to that in the UK. It was an absolutely fair enough comment for me, and he kind of snapped the spell of Brexit a little bit in Ireland. And it's time for a bit of straight talking after 2.5 years. My only main concern when he joined the European Council as president was that he replaced my favourite name in the history of politics, which is Herman Van Rompuy. I'll come back, Herman.
Wow. Don't you think that it was a little undiplomatic, unstatesmanlike to put it in those terms?
John, I'm sorry, it was time for straight talk. There's been enough from the other side, enough horrendous name calling from the other side. So what's wrong with a bit of blunt talk and coming back at you?
Okay.
But I've heard some arguments saying that it was less targeted towards the UK and more targeted to France and Germany, so they know that Tusk and everybody is on their side more in this situation right now. That, we agree with you, and that this is what Germany and France basically wanted to be out there, that statement.
I think they're all getting fed up of the whole paradigm, the whole running back and forth to EU. They give her something to go back with, and then they get laughed out of in the British Parliament. Let's not forget, it goes back as well. Tusk was the guy who couldn't believe the concessions Cameron was able to wring out of the EU. He helped Cameron get those concessions in the build-up to the referendum because he was terrified of the outcome of Brexit. I think Tusk, by the way, is having a bit of a moment in Ireland anyway, and in the UK. He's engaging more in English on TV. He recently was featured on the...
Still doesn't seem comfortable when he speaks.
Do you know what, dude? He comes across very well now. He's a lot more comfortable in English than he used to be. Not as slick as Morawiecki, for instance.
Morawiecki comes across very well.
He's very slick in English. But I have to say, Tusk, my mum in particular wants him to enter Irish politics. She has developed a bit of a man crush on the Donald. No, not that one. The Polish Donald.
No conversation about this subject is complete without a quick mention of Mr. Kaczyński in the ruling party. We talked about him a couple of weeks ago with the big scandal that wasn't, and he seems to have survived that pretty easily. He's still de facto in charge. How much longer are we going to pretend that he isn't the real boss? Why do we have to go through this charade that peace has real leaders and their elected leaders? I mean, come on.
Well, we wouldn't if he'd have won the presidency, but he didn't.
Yeah, and you also have to remember that, peace is in charge, but they're actually kind of like a semi-coalition with Ziobro's right party and Govin's right party as well. So they're all under the peace banner, but they're separate institutions. So by having Kaczynski not be the one in charge officially, then they can say it's still us all working together. If Kaczynski was the one who stepped in and Ziobro might be hey, then I want more influence. Govin's.
Well, let me throw this out there, Dr. Matt. Let me throw this out there. Tell me what you think. The best thing peace could do as a party is to make it clear to Kaczynski that he needs to retire, to go home to his cats full time, his mom, or whatever he does. He doesn't golf, I guess, so whatever he wants to do. Look, thanks for your help. It's been great. Here's your gold watch. Now go take it easy. Because the opposition, whether it's Wiosna, whether it's PO, whatever, for them, the very image of Kaczynski is a hammer that they use to beat up on peace, right? Because the leftist supporters, the centrist people, don't like him personally. Therefore, that dislike transfers to the party. So if they could distance themselves, if they could put some space between peace, the party, and Kaczynski himself, it would benefit them at election time. Does that sound reasonable?
Yeah, but this goes back to what we keep talking about when it comes to Poland parties being all about personality and single people. There's nobody else in peace right now that really could take the flag from Kaczynski at this moment. No personality.
How about Morawiecki?
Maybe.
I think that's what's happening. And now, from my outsider perspective, it seems they're putting Morawiecki on display in an English language setting an awful lot more. The kind of high profile someone he seems to be showing up to more often now. And I think maybe you're onto something there, John. Yeah.
Kaczynski seems that he doesn't bring too many benefits now. He's got the party where it was. He did a lot of work to bring them from nothing to the very top of the political world. Okay, great. It's time to exit stage left and let other people manage it and take things forward.
Even if he left the party, they'd still say he was pulling the strings anyways.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
too.
but if he doesn't run, say this in the fall now, which I doubt he won't, but if he didn't, then it will be interesting to see what happens, because then we can definitely talk about, if Morawiecki will be the one who will take over or somebody else, or would Ziobro try to reconnect with peace and take over them, which that's something that would scare this.
Interesting times. Polish political scene, always something to talk about. Hey guys, don't forget to check out our sponsor, Big Door 24, online. They have all the information you need when it comes to buying, renting, selling real estate, helping you through the mortgage process and whatnot. Go to bigdoor24.pl/crackcast for a great cashback offer. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time on the Crackcast.